What were some of your initial reactions from secondary practice?
It's always difficult, right, when you come off the field because you make a few assumptions on a few plays you watched, and then you watch the video, and I say it all the time, it's never as bad as you think, it's never as good. But we were better in some areas. I'm still got some guys cramping and that kind of stuff, and it'd be good for us to get in here and get it graded, and tomorrow they get a day off and rehab and get them hydrated up so we can go pretty good Monday. Got a lot of depth. Still we're able to go, 4 teams on 2 different fields, which I know that's contributed to the cramping because common sense would tell you that's doubling your workload because you've got so many people going at one time. So we hope we can do that a good while because it just helps, especially in a year. Football's already a sport where you got to have tremendous depth just because of the combativeness of the sport. But when you throw a pandemic on top of it as well, you're going to lose kids for different reasons. So we got to develop those 4s and 3s because we proved at quarterback last year. We played 4 quarterbacks. So that was a big incentive for us today, and we got through it again. So it's 2 days of working 4 teams the whole time.
When you look at the offense in the big picture, were you guys happy with the run-pass balance you hit last year, or do you want that to look any different going forward?
No, I think we averaged throwing the ball at 30, 31 times a game, and that's about where we'd like to be. Ideally for me, if you were to just cut it up perfectly, I'd like to be, 2/3 run, 1/3 pass, the yardage the same. Because I like to throw the ball down the field. And I like to have a mindset of running the ball downhill, which makes people have to commit to the run, which allows me to throw the ball deep. So we say it all the time. We want to run the ball to win, and we want to throw to score. It's not to say that we can't run the ball in the end zone, but we want to run the football. So kind of like I said, I think we averaged 31 passes last year. So we probably averaged, I couldn't tell you exactly, but I would imagine we were 70-something plus snaps a game. So, we weren't far off. Of course, we got in some games where we, late, had to throw a little bit more than I probably would have preferred to, which skewed the stats some.
Jeff, in the spring you mentioned several times about getting the offensive line numbers up and getting those freshmen in here. I know you haven't been able to watch a lot of film, but what were your impression of those new guys on the offensive line so far?
Yeah, we've talked about those guys quite a bit. With Philo, did we miss on any of the 5? And he believes strongly we didn't miss on any of them. Of course, we haven't been in pads yet, so that's a little hard to tell. And we'll know more Monday when we shell them up. But we feel really good about those 5 guys. It was also great, that Dom came back as a super senior, and Jalen came back as a super senior. So in my mind, that was like 7 recruits. Because we recruited 2 kids to stay, and we got in 5 more, which that was a blessing. Because you hate for those freshmen to have to play immediately. You want to bring them along a little bit because that's the most difficult position to learn, and it's the most important position, even though nobody wants to really admit that.
Why is the depth there so huge concern? Is it just the injuries, the kind of grind their body takes throughout the season?
Yeah, it's just going to happen. And like what I keep talking about, this 4 deep deal, you can't practice football without those guys. If one of them's down and you don't have a complete line, you're having to go to 3 groups. Well, then if another one's down, then now you're at 2 groups. So now the DBs don't get to benefit from it. The 4th string linebackers don't get to benefit from it. That's the hardest part, is can you keep 20 offensive linemen up and running so you can have 4 groups practicing football. And we're already under 20 already, and we're having some guys having to go twice. So you got to be careful on that, just because of the heat. But that's the issue, and but we feel really good as far as all those guys are returning from last year, and they all played very important snaps. So we've got not depth concerns as far as player experience, just the pure number. So getting those 5 freshmen in here was good to get our number up.
When you mentioned that deep shots are ideally a big part of the offense, does that sort of factor into how you evaluate quarterbacks and choose a starter? Do you look at that part of the game a little more heavily, just who can throw a better deep ball?
Yeah, for me, their ability to make throws off of a platform, accuracy's first. Then can they make throws off of their platform? And then how well do they throw a deep ball? Obviously, I got to have IQ, character.
Sure.
Are they winners and all those intangibles? But when I'm evaluating a quarterback, I don't want a stiff guy. I want a guy that can make one guy miss. I'm not a good enough football coach to call all perfect plays, and I don't expect Coach Lunny to be either. So we need our quarterback, when we make a bad call, to maybe make one of those guys miss and get us a first down, throw off the platform, and get us, and then we become good play callers. Everybody can call plays once the first down gets over with. It's getting that first down that's always the difficult one. But in my career, our career, we've been very successful at teaching kids to throw the ball 42 yards on their third step in a drop for a go ball, and we've been very successful at throwing a 42-yard post on time. And there's been very few quarterbacks I've ever coached in my career that we couldn't get that. You don't have to throw it further than that. I mean, if you can throw it 42 yards on time and make people miss, and you are accurate, you can play quarterback for us.
Frank told us in the spring that his big focus was becoming a more accurate passer. Do you see any progress in that regard?
Today, for sure, he had a really good day today. Just in scale, I know for sure he threw the ball a lot better than he did yesterday. Him and Josh both have really been throwing the ball well. JoJo's a good thrower of the football, and Eddie Lee as well. All 4 of those kids. Lowell's coming along. He looked better today. He's still not where he was for sure, but he looked better. And I'm going to go slow with Lowell. Lowell doesn't want to go slow, but that's what you need a coach for. I mean, I need to protect that kid. And feet concern me as a head coach. I'll let some kids talk me into playing with arms and shoulders and hands, but feet concern me because that's your escapability, and I don't want to compound an injury. So I'm going to really be careful and cautious with that kid.
Frank seems like kind of an emotional leader for the team and a guy that people just sort of are drawn to and rally around. How do you describe what you've seen in terms of how he relates to his teammates and just those things that he builds?
He does it different than Josh. Frank talks more, and he's funny, and he's sarcastic, but what people miss on Frank about is Frank's always the first one here. He's never on a list ever. And he gets a lot of respect from his teammates for that, as is Josh. I mean, Josh is the exact same way. Those are 2 incredibly good kids that lead in different ways. Josh doesn't talk as much as Frank does, but Frank's a laugher and a talker, and the kids do like Frank.
As far as the receivers and tight ends, what have you seen from them early, and what are you hoping to see as camp goes along?
Well, obviously, Josh and Zakari are the 2 guys that lead that room, and they're returners. They just know the offense so well. They're really bought into our culture, and I can't say enough about those 2 kids. Sheldon has already started off to having a good camp. Sticks. JT has had a great camp already. He shows up every day, works his butt off every day. Of course, Trayvon, who we brought in, had a good day today as well. And Julon has really much better condition than he ever has been before, and better just mindset of being out there. And I'm sure I left out somebody in that room that's probably been doing good, and I apologize if I have. As far as tight end, Leroy showed up in much better shape than he was in last year. Gavin has had a good camp. And of course, Oscar is one of our favorite kids on the team. He's a really good football player. You're going to see him continue to be, he's going to be really good. And then Allen has pushed through. I'm really proud of Allen. And Dan had a great summer as well. And Peter Gray in there. We love tight ends. We're going to recruit them and develop them, and it's not just a recruiting spiel. There's very few colleges in the country that have as many tight end coaches as we do. I was a tight end coach and a receiver coach, but I have coached tight ends. Barry Lane Jr. coached tight ends. Justin Burke has coached tight ends. Kurt Traylor's coached tight ends. So we and coaches our tight ends. So we've got a lot of tight end flavor in our room. A bunch of guys always trying to find a way to involve a tight end. So we're going to always try to have 6 or 7 really good ones there.
You mentioned that Josh has kind of a different leadership style to Frank. How does he go about then trying to build those connections or relate to the guys and develop into a leader with the team?
Yeah, that's why I always brag about both those kids. If you notice, if y'all ever ask about Josh, I bring up Frank. If y'all ever ask about Frank, I bring up Josh. Because it's just so amazing how they do that together. That doesn't happen. You keep up with those quarterback battles in other rooms. A lot of times those guys don't help each other. They are basically against each other and try to divide and conquer. There's none of that with either one of those kids. It's a true credit to both their parents. I mean, I know their parents have to be incredibly proud of how those kids support each other and help each other. And that's Josh. He's always helping Frank, and Frank's always helping Josh. And it's a tribute to their parents. That's nothing. We try to foster that here, but that's from the house. That's just the way those kids have been taught. Their parents have never told me that, but I can just tell by the models of those young men of how they behave.
With purely the on-field component, does Josh bring anything different from what Frank brings?
Yeah, they're different. There's no doubt. Each has strengths and each has weaknesses, and it's our job as coaches to, focus on what their strengths are and not hide their weaknesses. And both of them know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and they both work on that, at all times. And we feel really good about our quarterback depth, and our O-line depth, our running back depth, and our receivers. We're getting deeper at receiver. That was a concern coming into the season, but we feel we're much deeper at receiver right now.
What are the biggest strengths for each of those two quarterbacks, for Frank and Josh?
Well, Josh, both their strengths are they've played a bunch of football games. I mean, Josh played a lot of football before he came to us. He had the unfortunate collarbone issue last year, so he didn't get to play as much last year. But when you know it, was the 1 year Frank stayed healthy. So Frank got to play a lot of football. So both those kids have got a lot of playing time. They're both great leaders. They're unbelievable people. And Josh would probably rather throw the ball than run it. And Frank might rather pull it down and run it than throw it. So both of them are working on that aspect. Josh becoming a better runner, and Frank becoming where he's more confident in throwing the ball, which he has done in the spring and the summer, and now he is doing that. And Josh has really leaned his body up. He looks fantastic right now. I don't know if you've noticed, he's chiseled up, so he's moving a lot better.
Is that quarterback run component essential to striking that kind of ideal balance you talked about?
Yeah, we're going to always run our quarterbacks, no matter who they are. We're going to run them because it makes the numbers equal. It's the only way we can get 11 on 11. If not, you're playing 10 on 11, and those aren't real good odds. So, and it just makes the defense work on stuff that they don't really like working on. +1 runs is what we call those. We're going to always have +1 runs. We're not going to ever run a quarterback in the ground, but we're going to always run our quarterbacks.
Is there anything specific that Josh has to do or show to assert himself as the number 1 guy?
They're both good. It doesn't matter which one we play. We feel like we can win with either one of them. So it's not like Josh isn't doing something or Frank is. It's just the way it ended up. I mean, Josh ended up being hurt last, and Frank was healthy, and Frank kept playing good, so there's no reason to take Frank out. So he keeps playing good. And Josh plays good too. But I'm not just going to pull someone just to pull them. I mean, Frank's done nothing to deserve not to go out there first right now. And Josh has done nothing to deserve to not go first other than get injured. But Lowell proved that too. I mean, Lowell was the 2nd-rated quarterback in the country when he was healthy, and then he got injured. So that's just part of the game. It's nothing that those kids have done any better than the other one. They're just who's healthy. They all play good, so we can win with any of those kids.